Greetings, viewers. This is the 1-year anniversary of this YouTube channel, and I thought I would use this opportunity to do a slightly different video where I'm going to look back on some videos that we've done over the course of the past year and make some corrections, additions, etc. To those videos. So first up, straight off the bat, is probably the biggest mistake I would say I made over the course of the year. In the course of reviewing the Pelikan MK30, which is a pen I pointed out was very similar to the Lamy 2000 and the Montblanc 220. So these were essentially three pens that came out from the three major German pen manufacturers around the same time in the mid to late 1960s. And of course, the Lamy 2000 is the only one that's actually still in production today. I did point out that the big difference between the MK30 and the other two pens, in addition to the fact that it's not made of Makrolon like the other two are, the big difference was the fact that it had a steel nib, not a gold nib. Well, I was correct that the MK30 does come in a steel nib. It also comes in a 14-karat gold nib, and as several viewers pointed out, this nib, in fact, on the pen that I have is in fact a 14-karat gold nib. It is not visible from the outside, but if you pull the nib out, you can clearly see on the lower portion of the nib that it is 14-karat gold. So I do thank those viewers who pointed that out to me, I stand corrected on this particular pen, but you can get it in a steel nib. So thank you all very much for pointing that out, and that was probably one of the biggest, just factual errors that I made over the course of the year. So now all these pens are even more similar than I thought. So they all have 14-karat gold nibs apparently. Moving on to a follow-up. This is the Wing Sung Model 626. I gave a very, very favorable review to this pen. It is a nice pen. It writes really well, etc. However, on using it for a period of time after the video, one thing I did realize that I think it's very important to point out is this pen does not do a particularly good job of protecting the nib from drying out. It does have a cap liner, but for whatever reason it's not terribly effective. So I've had quite a bit of issues with this pen drying out. Not severely drying out, but basically you can't just simply uncap the pen after a day or two and expect it just to write first time every time and be a super reliable writer. Once you get it going, it writes beautifully, writes a nice wet line, etc. So everything else I said in the video still holds. But just by way of follow-up, if sort of a first time every time uncap it and right away writer is something you're looking for, this pen might not be the best pen for you. Although I do still have a very overall favorable view of this pen. That is just something to consider. So moving on to another issue which requires a bit of clarification. When I was talking about the Platinum Preppy, I gave some fairly detailed instructions on how to remove the labeling so you can get essentially a nice clear Platinum Preppy, because the labeling is sort of painted on and it's a little tough to remove. Everything I said still applies. However, one thing that was pointed out to me is recently they've come out with what they call the crystal version of the Platinum Preppy, which already has pretty much all the labeling not present. So it's basically a clear Platinum Preppy. So if this is what you want to start out with, rather than starting out with one with all the labeling on it and removing it, you could just simply buy the clear version, and it costs the same amount of money. So that is definitely something to consider and keep in mind when you're shopping for the Platinum Preppy. Particularly if you're going to eyedropper it like I have here, you probably want either the clear one or remove the labeling from the regular one. Another follow-up that I want to do is this Keiko Edge pen. We talked about the material that it being Makrolon, and I did mention that I thought the entire pen, including the section, was Makrolon. Upon further examination, research, reflection, etc., I realized that the section is actually metal with the brushed finish made to look just like the Makrolon finish. So the Keiko Edge, you're basically dealing with a Makrolon body, Makrolon cap, and a brushed metal section. So just keep that in mind. And if you really think about it, when you hold it for a while, you can realize you can actually feel from like a temperature perspective, the metal is going to be like a cooler section than the body of the pen. So that sort of does become obvious after a little while. So something to think about there. So that's the Keiko Edge. although just fairly recently, I reviewed this Montblanc Starwalker ceramics, which is a great pen. One thing I pointed out was the fact that it's a screw-on cap and it only kind of screws on one way, and what's nice is that the pattern sort of matches when you screw it on. It's also a screw to post, so when you screw it on the back, the pattern still matches when it's posted. One thing I did sort of grouse about a little was that if you remember my last video, the nib didn't line up with the clip perfectly when posted. And one or two viewers actually pointed out that on this pen, the nib unit just simply rotates. So that was actually a very easy fix. I don't even want to call it a fix, more like a user adjustment, etc. But the nib unit rotates on this pen, so that issue that I mentioned is effectively a non-issue at all. Still, great pen. Check out my review if you want more information on this Montblanc Starwalker ceramics pen. And finally, and this is going to be, we're going to take a little time on this one. This is the PenBBS 355 bulk filler pen. So one thing, I left out a very important step when filling this pen. It was not clear. I definitely didn't mention it or even do it on the video at all. So I'm going to essentially redo the video on how to fill this pen, but we're going to do it. We'll do it dry first for the moment. So this is a bulk filler style pen. So you're going to unscrew the cap on the end. You're going to draw the rod down. You're going to then turn it to engage the end on the piston unit. You're then going to push the piston unit up to the end. You're going to immerse it in the ink. You're going to then draw the ink into the pen. Now, here's the part that I left out that's kind of pretty important. You're going to pull this back fairly aggressively until it clicks. When it clicks, that's actually going to engage this piece here, which will then allow you to fairly easily rotate it back and then disengage the threads from the piston. Then you can simply push this back in and tighten that down. A couple of things I also didn't mention in the video that is pretty important. It should be obvious, but it sort of slipped my mind at the time doing the video. When you're pushing this back through after you fill it, you're going to be displacing a small amount of ink, which is having nowhere to go, will likely come out of the pen. So make sure that the tip is still immersed in the ink bottle while you're doing this final step. Otherwise, you're going to get some ink discharge and make a little bit of a mess. Also, the thing I did not mention is this actually has a shutoff valve mechanism, just like most vacuum fillers. So when you have this closed all the way down, the section and the barrel are disconnected from each other. So whether you like that or don't like that, that's a whole debatable issue about vacuum filling pens, but that still applies here as well. So we're going to actually go through this filling procedure right now because it's really kind of important, and I did that step that I left out is actually kind of crucial to filling this pen. So we're going to change the camera angle and we'll just do a quick fill on this pen yet again to set the record straight. Okay, folks, we're going to refill this pen now with the same ink that we used last time, which is the Waterman Audacious Red. So basically, if you remember what we said, we're going to unscrew the back here. We're going to pull the rod back. We're going to turn to engage the threads on the end of the rod with the piston mechanism. We're going to then push all the way down. Now we're going to immerse in the ink. We're going to pull it up, which will draw the ink into the pen. We'll do that twice, but we'll get a good fill here. So that's a pretty good amount of ink. We then going to, now, and here's the key step that we did not do last time that's important. I'm going to keep pulling till I get that click. I don't know if you heard the click, but there's definitely a click there. That will essentially hold the piston in place and allow us to easily unscrew. And now as I push this rod back in, it is going to be displacing some ink. So notice I'm keeping the tip submerged. I can then screw that and cinch that down, and I have a nice fully filled pen done correctly. Thank you very much.